Northwest Now is supported, in part, by viewers like you. Thank you.
After losing a bid for sheriff, but then jumping across the street to Tacoma PD to serve for more than a year as the interim chief of police, Patti Jackson finally got the job for good. Near unanimous approval is rare these days, but Jackson's appointment to the job seems to be pretty widely applauded by city leadership, department management, and the rank and file. Patti Jackson is next on Northwest Now. This is a pretty typical pattern in leadership. First, there's a long-term, stable leader in place who leaves. Then a new outside person comes in with much fanfare and fails. Then, finally, somebody who people think maybe should have gotten the gig in the first place ends up in the job. Some might argue that somewhat parallels the story with Patti Jackson, a local law enforcement officer who worked for 35 years with the Pierce County Sheriff's Department before coming to Tacoma PD. Jackson was part of the cleanup on several recent departmental messes that resulted in the city writing $500,000 checks to ex-employees, including to a former chief of staff and former police chief, Avery Moore, who got put on administrative leave and then was allowed to resign with a big payout. All of that, of course, followed the 2020 death of Manny Ellis and more than $1 million worth of city payouts to the 3 officers involved and a $6 million payout to Ellis's family. It's been a very difficult period for the department, and even more so if we travel back into the early 2000s and the whole David Brame tragedy. Now, however, the hope is that the Tacoma Police Department can enter a new rebuilding phase with the department's first ever female chief in charge. Patti, thanks so much for coming to Northwest Now. Great to have the new chief of police for the city of Tacoma here on the program. You're a local person. Talk a little bit about where you were born and raised and how you came up. Just give us a little background.
First, thank you very much for having me. It's absolutely my privilege, my honor to be here and to serve the community of Tacoma. So I've spent my entire young, kind of early adults all the way up through. So really, I consider myself from Washington. I was born in San Diego, California to parents in the military, served the U.S. Navy, and then moved around a lot for that when my dad transitioned to work for the government. So anywhere from San Diego, California to Japan, Hayama, Japan, and then landed in Washington and have stayed here ever since.
You think any of that experience, I asked this too of another guest recently. Do you think some of that experience of moving around, even living internationally to some degree, does that inform your job at all today, do you think?
Absolutely, 100%. I think that really just having that experience and growing with that experience, right? Not later on after you kind of set in your life and your real life experience, when you're growing with that, I think that it has a great impact on how you view people.
So when did you say, try to recall the moment you said, I'm going to do law enforcement, and talk a little bit about how you matriculated up through law enforcement.
Right. So law enforcement was something that never even was hitting my radar. It was, I graduated early from high school. I went out to Bethel and was doing, college, and I decided that I'm gonna do something, right? But whatever it is, I'm gonna give it my all. And if I became part of a negative, aspect of that, then I was gonna look for something that I wouldn't bring that to. I was working in banking. I was working as a teller, worked my way up to, at a very young age, worked my way up to one of our branch, managers. And when there's no unions or any type of labor groups like that, and when I found out that as a female branch manager I was making almost $5 an hour less than a male teller, I was like, okay, I've got 2 choices. I can be a horse's behind, or I can be that person that makes a difference and find a new room to go to that I can grow. Law enforcement was hiring. I decided I think I can do that. And I have loved it ever since.
I will posit this theory. I like the fact that somebody who didn't dream of being a police officer when they were a kid found their way into police work. I'm not saying that it's always bad, right, but when you're a kid and you're kind of playing cops and robbers, I would say that there's a certain mentality that goes along with that, where you've got the authority, you've got the power, you're going to do these things, you're going to wrestle the bad guys, which is good. We need that. But by the same token, I think having somebody who adapted kind of their values to the career as opposed to trying to learn I think there's some value in that. Am I nuts, or what do you? How do police officers view that?
I don't think you're nuts at all. I think, it depends. It depends on what emotion you carry with you, right? I mean, I've run the spectrum, right? Females, not a place for, law enforcement, not a place for females. I'm not that big, not a place for that. My career grew up, on the Corrections Bureau of the Sheriff's Department, not somebody that's out kicking down doors. And so you always have those nots,
yeah.
right? But I think that you just keep bringing forward kind of the talents and the skill set that you do have, and you use your ability to lean on the subject matter experts that you do have in any agency that you look for. And you say, okay, what is it that they need from me? And if I have that skill set, which I do, I bring that forward, and we become, a well-rounded and a well-functioning department. I'm
going to pull the curtain back and talk to you about my process in writing for this show. I was sitting there writing, a discussion with Patti Jackson. I found myself trying to write a couple times, Tacoma, a troubled police department.
Right.
And I started challenging myself on that. Are they a troubled police? Are they not a troubled police? I could argue both sides of the coin. And my cop-out was, is Tacoma a troubled police department with a question mark? That's
right.
part of the discussion.
Right.
So I just copped out of it for
right.
myself.
Right.
I want to ask you, though, is that fair or not? Do you consider Tacoma to be a troubled police department?
I don't. I consider Tacoma to be a very well-functioning professional department. And I speaking to that a little bit with troubled, I think the profession in and of itself can be considered troubled, right? And it's just like any other thing. If you look at what happens in society, let's take the other side of the spectrum, farthest end away from law enforcement. Often, you have this, something happens and you find out who done it. And you go, I would have never seen that coming. The best neighbor I ever had, the best father.
He was so quiet.
Yes, right. You fill in the blank,
yeah.
right? Does that happen in law enforcement? It absolutely does. Does it happen in doctors, pilots, you name it? So I think that does. It's a profession, though, that speaks to, right, a group of men and women who go through, they're very professional because of all the training that they must, the mandates must, right, go through to be able to get you to the level that they're at, to where they're going out on their own and answering calls. But there's a little something extra, right, in law enforcement, and that's that authority to really take somebody's civil rights from them. And so you have to make sure that the men and women that are going out are trained, and that they're somebody that you will hold accountable if we take, your foot comes off the curb a little bit.
Yeah.
And so, just in making sure that I really answer that question for you, do I think that we're a troubled agency? I do not.
Okay. Yeah, fair.
Do I think that we've had troubled people? I do.
Okay.
And we've handled that.
Another piece of bad news for you is you're talking to somebody who's covered crime and cops in many different jurisdictions in many different states all around the country for a long darn time. So my impression of police departments, and I have a lot of police friends and whatnot, but there's always been a very high level of what I call palace intrigue.
That's right.
Inside of police departments. People trying to cut the legs out from each other, gain advantage, sue each other's pants off, all the things.
Right.
There's been a piece of that in the Tacoma Police Department. My question to you is that culture fixable, or does it come along with cops? Is there something in the water? How do you view it? How do you take it? And is it fixable?
Right. I think that culture, and because I think that's also, there's so many words and let's say buzzwords, whatever term you want to use with that, right? There's so many words that are out there that hold a different, definition for each person depending on their emotion. I think that culture is what we tolerate. And I think that a shift has made in what's been tolerable. And that is, you said it yourself, sue the pants off of. And that could be any way you look at it.
And just a lot of beef on
That's
the
right.
administrative team and everything.
That's
beef,
right.
Beef.
And I get it, right? And so, there are times that I do believe that there are people that ultimately must use some form of litigation to impose that change that's necessary to move forward. that's a little bit of a problem, though, is that we don't always shift and move forward. We still it's like when, in those horror flicks where, don't go in there and somebody grabs a hold of your ankle and they just keep pulling you back.
Well, and sometimes the litigation can be weaponized, too.
That's right.
I didn't get my way.
That's right.
I don't like the way things happen. So-and-so got, and I didn't.
That's right.
So there's that's a piece of it, too.
And I think it matters with what you do with that, right? So, it does. People tell you, don't take things personally. It's hard sometimes not to, because you want to maintain an agency that is really, a place. You'd said it yourself to where, you maybe never saw yourself in law enforcement. I want us to be an agency where people go, I could see myself there.
Yeah, yeah. Here's a chance to talk to City Council and the decision makers. What do you need? I know you haven't been there for a real, but if I could give you a wish list and you bullet pointed 3 or 5 things on there, what would it be?
That's right. Everybody's going to think that I'm going to say a truckload filled with money.
Right.
That's not really the answer, right?
You can give that to me.
You can see this out there.
Yeah.
Yes, right. Yes. I think what we need, and we're getting it, I want to make sure that I say that, and a big heart goes out, because that's what's making the draw for people to come to our agency, is the support, that we are getting, right? From the city manager, the mayor, the council, right? And our community. They're supporting us as an agency. That makes this be an agency that people want to come to, because they say, hey, we know it's not a profession that everybody loves, but it's a profession that's necessary. Why not, right, build my career in a place where I feel supported and backed?
I was talking to the mayor recently on this program, and I was surprised to hear him say, well, we're doing really well with recruitment. We're almost there. And I was like, really? Oh, okay. Well, that sounds good. So give me an update. Are we fully staffed? Are we getting close? About where do we stand?
We're getting very close. So we were knocking on 40's door, and I'm not talking my age, right? We know that. But we were knocking on 40's door, and we are at single digits now. And I hold that. People think, oh, what's the money? Money is good, but if that's what it was, we wouldn't have been knocking at 40, right? And so I hold that and attribute that to people like that shift in the culture that you talk about. It's where people feel like they can come to work, they can do their job, they will be supported, and money is good, but there's also benefit package, right? What comes along with that? Is there officer wellness? And what is the leadership doing to make sure that they're kind of that front line in the football team, if you will. They're making sure I'm okay in doing my job.
When Avery Moore sat in the very chair that you're sitting in, when he arrived, we did the same thing with him. He talked pretty extensively about, I think it's University of Texas Austin's violent crime plan, which you basically, and it makes perfect sense. You look at statistics to show you where the troubled areas are and who the frequent flyers are. And if you can address that population, you've taken care of a lot of the crime population. Is there any merit to that? Is that something that will continue, or are you going to put a twist on it when it comes to addressing crime? Give me some context.
Right. So there is a twist on it already. I think that's a phenomenal, right? Something needed to be done. And you can look, people criticize, whatever it is that you want to do. But I mean, it comes down to disrupting crime, right? And so, but you need to use those, the crime analysis. Where are the crimes taking place? What time is that happening? What types of crime? And then let's get out there and put emphasis on that. And it works, because crime's going to happen. I hate to say that because it seems flippant, but let's make it as least convenient for individuals that want to engage in criminal activity as we can. And that's what we're doing. And so we do what we have. It helps when you are up there and you have that, your budgeted positions filled, because those are those are the primary call responders, right? And so they're out there, they're answering those 911 calls and going to those. But
or hopefully, preferably out just talking around a little bit, maybe.
That was my next thing.
Yeah.
That then you've got that, but at the same time, you're able to have groups of people that are engaged in, right? Community policing. It works. And I'm going to say it, my agency makes fun of me because I've kind of adopted this, but my big thing is get to know us before you need us. And when we're out there talking around, people get to know us, and it makes it easier for you to go, oh, you know what, I used to question myself on whether I should call the police. I know they want me to, 911. hey, we got this thing going on, because that's the only way we get good is if we're in partnership.
Let's talk a little bit about something that's been in the news lately. I know you've been following it, when you read your police chief journal, and it's been an issue in the state too, the flock cameras.
Right.
Keith Swank says it's going to give the bad guys a real leg up on us if we can't use it.
Right.
Do you think there's any, do you wish the decision was made to allow them?
Right.
Do you think that's an investment that should be made or not? Give me your take on flock cameras.
Right. So the flock cameras is basically a brand of a company. There are other camera systems that are out there that are being used. Whatever. You use terms like surveillance or all these type of things. We never invested in going with the flock. We were looking at it right when the big push came against it, controversy, and I know that people are afraid, and their fear is their reality. That said, but we talk about all these things that we think, and you can again fill in the blank. Cops are too, they're too reactive. They're not reactive enough. Whatever term it is that you want to use. So we find tools that'll help us do our jobs, that'll make certain that we're not escalating where we don't need to, and then we kick it out from under you.
Yeah.
Hold, I think, agencies accountable to what they say they're going to do. But I think that the fear became so nationwide spread that there just wasn't enough support behind it, that it really was, the juice wasn't worth the squeeze, right?
Yeah.
So, and it is, and Sheriff Swank is not wrong, right? It is a tool that we can and should be using, but we also, want to respect, the laws that are out there, and it's the public disclosures that really, kind of put that cramp on there.
To me, it seemed like it had the potential to kind of increase the safety of officer-public interactions, in the sense that as opposed to just doing traffic stops.
That's right.
Now I can start running plates for wants and warrants.
That's right.
And I know what your profile looks like on paper,
right.
where I typically need to go talk to you.
That's right.
Okay, we're going to talk.
That's right. Necessity.
Taking that away seems like it puts us back more into kind of random stops, and who knows what could happen on any given traffic stop. And I don't know if I like that as much.
I agree. I think that it does create a little bit more of that false narrative that somebody's being stopped just because of, right? But you're going back to that, human, this is what we know, this is what we're told, and so you're looking for that. And sometimes we get it wrong. Right, but I will say the good things that have happened. That there was that horrific assault that happened out at the Point Defiance Park. There's been individuals, when I first got here, a little 3-year-old went missing, and the use of that. There was the shooting over at Allamore Hospital, and we were able to locate the suspect quickly.
Yeah.
Because of that. And so it's a tool that is effective, but given anything else, if it's misused, it creates a false sense of I just support from the public.
One of the other things that's kind of been cast over not just Tacoma, but a lot of police departments, but Tacoma Police Department, is the whole issue of racial disparity. There's been a fair amount of racial strife internal in that department, and of course a fair amount alleged outside the department.
Right.
How do you view the Tacoma PD? Does it have a racial problem? Is it happenstance? Is it a few bad apples? Set me straight on that.
I think that if somebody believes that a problem exists, we can make that exist, right? Because of the fact that that's our emotion, it's what we grew up with, it's how we handle things. Sometimes we cannot, and I've had people tell me, I hate the police. And I've asked them what their experience with, well, I never had it, but my parents did, what have you. Same thing, I don't like a certain type of food, I didn't grow up with it. And so do I think that there's still, racial inequity, racial disparity, you fill in that term? I think there is, and I think that that's a nationwide problem, not specific to Tacoma Police Department. I will tell you that we are making a difference, because I don't know if you follow anything like when you said you were looking up, but like when I had the privilege of being sworn in as permanent, right, the year after I had been here as the interim. If you would have looked in, those individuals that came to witness that and to support us as an agency for that, you would have said, I would have never thought that I would see, this group represented there, or this collective group, and it was amazing.
So when it comes to research that shows that minority groups are more likely to be ticketed, more likely to be confronted, are those reality in your mind? Are they improving? in your mind? And do you think there is a chance? Are we driving toward, or have we turned away from something like a consent decree with
Right.
DOJ?
I would always hope that we've turned away from. I don't, have the information that says we're driving towards. There are individuals I think that would like that because I think that they feel that that would be the answer. But my response to that, and it doesn't mean that I'm not supportive of, having somebody sit beside me, not behind me, not looking over my shoulder,
Right.
sit behind me so we can make sure that we have the same data set,
Yeah.
right, to be able to look at that. And that does happen a lot. There's, you use the term look behind the curtain. I will tell you, and I used it in another thing I had just done, when the Seahawks were, at the Bowl, I tried to call the coach there and say, hey man, I think you should do this. Okay, they never took my call. We're expected to take the call in policing. And it is typically from an individual who's never gone through the 720 hours that, an agency member needs to go through just to become a certified peace officer.
Yeah.
And so I think that some of the data that you see, you can, I'm not saying that there's faults. I want to be careful. I don't want the hate mail that goes with that, but I'm saying that it does exist, right? If you look now and you're driving down the road, I would challenge you to tell me what the gender is of the person driving towards you, what race they are, what nationality, where do they come from, right? You can't see anymore. The cars are,
Yeah.
and so
They've got illegal tint on.
that's right. That's right. And so I want to be careful because not everybody that's driving a vehicle like that is doing anything illegal.
Yeah.
But I do believe that there has been such a belief. It's going to take a long time to walk us back from that.
Yeah.
And we're doing it.
Maybe 2 years ago, I would say it was fair to say the business community in Tacoma was fairly apoplectic about street crime, the impact on their businesses, the business climate in this town. I attempted to do a program on Northwest Now where we had some business people or people who were pretty outspoken in podcast and in print.
Right.
They came in here, we turned on the cameras, and oh my gosh, it turns out they were trying to sell books and they were politicians and everything was great.
Right.
It was one of those shows that I just assumed take and kind of
Right.
throw into the Puget Sound. But privately and in other discussions, I know the business community was outside of its skull.
That's right.
Have you had those conversations with the business community? What are they telling you, and what are you telling them?
I absolutely have had them. I have shown up for everything, of course, we all have a life, but everything that I've been invited to, I really try to myself personally show up or to send representation from our leadership teams so that we know kind of, can we move the needle? And I believe the needle is being moved, and I don't believe it's necessarily anything that Tacoma Police Department is doing. I believe it's us as a community. Police Department is involved, right, but we have partners. And I think getting back to, if there's social services that are needed, let those subject matter experts handle the social services, right, aspect of it. If law enforcement intervention or even just being there as a presence needs to happen, let us do what we're trained to do, and let's work collaboratively with the business owners. Stop telling people what they need, stop hearing what they need, or start hearing, what they need, and then work towards that. And it's working.
Where do things stand in terms of crime? I know that we had a real spike in COVID, and now it seems like it's dropping off nationwide, and I think Tacoma included. I don't know if we're pre-2019 yet or not, but do you have goals for that? What is a win for you? When do you come out and hold a news conference and say, folks,
right.
I, Patti Jackson, have solved the problem?
Right.
I know you'd never do that. I'm
No, I
being
wouldn't.
facetious. But what does success look like in this town when it comes to crime that was awfully darn high profile and bad for a while? I think is moderating to some degree. What do you see as your goal?
I think that success can be measured and can truly be measured when you see that people, not just hear that, right, you see that people feel safe, because it is something that's palpable, right? If I see people walking down the waterfront, or if I see them, walking in the business units, in neighborhoods, I think that is a huge indicator that we are successful as, some form of crime prevention, right? Crime is, historical, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
But what can we do again, and to disrupt, right, those individuals that are engaged in? I'm not trying to say that I want them to go out to, another area, but not in Tacoma. I don't want you here.
Yeah.
And we're going to have the best, right,
Yeah.
agency that we can to make certain that we, at the very least, make it difficult for you.
Last 60 seconds here. You talked a little bit about City Council and the fact that you've been well provided for. With that said,
Right.
if I said, hey, what's on your radar?
Right.
2 or 3 bullet points over the course of the next year. What are your top priorities?
Right. I think the top priorities are exactly what we're doing, right? We're moving forward as an agency. We need to grow it. Like you said yourself, we're at our full budgeted capacity, but that's, still, 50 less than what it was years ago. So
More's
let's
better.
get back to what we need. And then let's be out there to where, you want the police department to come out and see you and talk to you. Welcome us. Everybody loves it when we get out of our car and you're not throwing a rock at us.
Yeah.
And I will tell you that and I know it's corny or whatever, I love the men and women that I work for. I work every day to earn their trust. Just as importantly, and probably, the community knows it, I work every day for the agency to earn the community's trust as well. And it's working.
Well, Chief Jackson, thanks so much for coming into Northwest Now. Great to have you, and wish you the best of luck.
It's my privilege. Thank you so much.
Reasonable people can have different opinions about whether it's fair to characterize Tacoma Police as a troubled department. The bottom line, most of the people in a 400-person department can do a great job, but a relatively small percentage of high-profile corrupt or racist or power-hungry or greedy or psychologically unfit people can blow a very visible hole in the entire organization, and dealing with that small subset of bad apples is going to be the challenge for TPD for the foreseeable future, just like it is out on the streets. I wish Chief Jackson the best and appreciate her time here on Northwest Now. I hope this program got you thinking and talking. You can find this program on the web at kbtc.org, stream it through the PBS app, or listen on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. That's going to do it for this edition of Northwest Now. Until next time, I'm Tom Layson. Thanks for watching.